Right now, as you listen to this, there are defensive coordinators for the New England Patriots, billion-dollar hedge fund managers, and military commanders literally dropping into active war zones.
Mhm.
And they are all relying on the exact same operating system to survive the chaos.
Yeah, and the crazy part is it wasn't developed in Silicon Valley.
Right, not at all. It was actually designed by a Roman emperor and a former slave over 2,000 years ago. So, welcome to today's deep dive. If you're someone who loves to learn but hates information overload, you're in the right place. Our mission today is to distill this massive, ancient operating system into something highly actionable.
Exactly. We're looking at a system of thought that isn't just, some abstract theory to debate in a classroom. It's a deeply practical toolkit.
And to do this, we're pulling from excerpts compiled in the Daily Stoic. 366 meditations on wisdom, perseverance, and the art of living by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman. We're talking about Stoicism.
We are. But before we get into the actual mechanics of how this framework functions in your day-to-day life, I think we have to address a pretty massive historical misunderstanding.
Oh, totally.
Because the word Stoic has been completely warped in modern English.
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit, I always pictured a Stoic as someone like Mr. Spock from Star Trek.
Right. Just pure, cold, robotic logic.
Exactly, like a person who stands in the pouring rain, completely miserable, but just refuses to frown or even acknowledge the cold. I looked at it as turning off your humanity, like installing a firewall in your brain to block out all human emotions so you can just function under heavy fire.
It's a great analogy, but it's not quite a firewall. Because a firewall blocks the bad news from even reaching you, right? But the Stoics lived in the real world. They experienced real human emotions.
So if it's not a firewall, what is it?
It's more like a highly advanced spam filter.
Oh, interesting.
Right. The chaotic events, the tragedies, the daily annoyances, they still hit your inbox. But your brain automatically categorizes them. It flags what is actionable and what is just noise.
So you don't waste your cognitive load reading the spam.
Exactly. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer actually describes Stoicism as the highest point to which man can attain by the mere use of his faculty of reason. It's not about being numb. It's an active, paradigm-shifting way of processing reality.
And it was built for the real world, the marketplace, the political arena, the battlefield.
Completely. It wasn't built for ivory tower academics.
And I think the diversity of the people who originally built and tested this system really proves that point. I mean, looking at the sources, Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, was a prosperous merchant who lost everything in a shipwreck.
Yeah, quite the origin story.
Right. And then Cleanthes was a former boxer who worked night shifts carrying water just to put himself through school.
That's real grit.
And then you jump to someone like Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor with almost absolute global power. And on the exact opposite end of the human spectrum, Epictetus, who literally lived as a slave.
And Seneca, who is a famous playwright and a political advisor.
Right. It spans every conceivable level of the human hierarchy.
And that diversity of experience is exactly what makes it scale so well to any level of modern stress. Because a philosophy developed by both an emperor and a slave has been stripped of anything fragile.
It's been pressure tested.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why you see it utilized today by, the coaching staffs of the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks.
And LL Cool J, apparently.
Yeah, LL Cool J uses it. The author and investor Tim Ferriss explicitly calls it the ideal personal operating system for high-stress environments.
And it scales far beyond just high-performance business or sports. I mean, it goes into situations of unimaginable adversity. The sources detail how Captain James Stockdale relied on the teachings of Epictetus while he was enduring a half-decade of brutal torture as a prisoner of war in Vietnam.
Incredible story.
It really is. And General James Mad Dog Mattis, a Marine and NATO commander, actually carried a copy of Marcus Aurelius's Meditations with him into battle on deployments across the Persian Gulf, Afghanistan, and Iraq.
Because when a commander is dropping into a war zone or a prisoner is locked in a cell, abstract theories are completely useless.
Right. You don't care about philosophy in that moment.
You only care about maintaining your sanity, your psychological sovereignty. Stoicism provided Stockdale and Mattis with a framework to prevent their minds from breaking when their physical environments were entirely out of their control.
Well, if this framework can sustain a prisoner of war and guide a Roman emperor, we need to look under the hood. What is the engine driving this?
Well, Marcus Aurelius structures this around what he calls the big three disciplines:
Okay.
perception, action, and will.
Let's break down the mechanics of those three.
Sure. So perception isn't just about passively seeing the world. It is the active discipline of controlling how we interpret what we see.
Stripping away our biased judgments, essentially.
Yes. And then action is the discipline of directing our decisions properly and justly, ensuring that our movements actually serve a common good rather than just selfish impulses.
Okay, perception, action, and the third is will.
Right. Will is the discipline of radical acceptance,
Right.
willingly embracing the things we cannot change and finding our place within that reality.
That discipline of will really mirrors something deeply embedded in modern psychology. The sources highlight Epictetus's core practice, which is separating what is in our control from what is not.
The foundational Stoic exercise.
Yeah, and it's the exact same mechanism as the serenity prayer used in the recovery community, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Asking for the serenity to accept what cannot be changed, the courage to change what can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Epictetus taught that we have to look at every single situation and draw a hard, impenetrable line. On one side of the line are our reasoned choices. On the other side are uncontrollable externals.
Give me a practical example of that.
Okay, say a flight is delayed because of a massive storm. You can scream at the gate agent all you want,
Which people do.
all the time,
Mm.
but your anger will not alter the barometric pressure. You are literally hurling your emotional energy at an immovable object, and you're depleting the exact energy reserves you need to figure out an alternative travel plan.
Right. But when Epictetus defines this circle of control, the list of what sits inside that circle is almost uncomfortably short.
It's very short.
According to the texts, the only thing truly inside your control is your mind. Not your property, not your reputation, and not even your physical body.
Yeah. Our bodies, our bank accounts, what our coworkers think of us to the Stoics, those are all classified as external.
Okay, hold on. I have to challenge this classification of the body.
Sure, go ahead.
If I set an alarm for 5 a.m., right, and I force myself to go to the gym and I strictly monitor my diet, I am controlling my physical body. Categorizing the body as external and outside my control feels really defeatist. Why draw the line there?
I get that. It feels defeatist until you separate the process from the outcome.
Meaning?
You absolutely control the choice to go to the gym. You control the choice to eat well. Those are your reasoned choices, and they live entirely inside your mind. But the ultimate fate of your physical body is subject to external forces. You could train like an Olympian, eat perfectly, and still step off a curb tomorrow and get hit by a distracted driver.
Oof. Yeah.
Or you could contract a genetic illness that just completely ignores all your hard work.
Right. So it's about shifting your entire metric for success. You decouple the effort from the result. I own the process, the discipline, the choice, but the universe ultimately owns the outcome.
Exactly. Because if you tie your baseline peace of mind to the outcome of your physical body, you are basically handing your happiness over to a hostage taker.
Wow.
You make yourself intensely vulnerable. By recognizing that your body's ultimate fate is external, you actually reduce your cognitive load. You don't have to manage the universe. You only have to manage your choices.
And if the mind, like our capacity for reasoned choice, is the only territory we actually own, it explains why navigating the modern world feels so exhausting.
Oh, completely.
Because literally everything around us is engineered to invade that exact territory.
Marcus Aurelius recognized this threat way back in ancient Rome. He repeatedly warned himself to cut the strings that pull your mind.
Strange.
Yeah, he understood that humans are constantly at risk of functioning like puppets, jerked around by fear, suspicion, desire, or anger.
And the modern equivalents of those strings are terrifyingly efficient.
They're weaponized now.
They really are. We have Silicon Valley engineers designing apps to mimic the variable rewards of slot machines. We have food scientists exploiting our biological responses to sugar and salt, so we literally can't stop eating processed foods.
And an entire media ecosystem algorithmically designed to manufacture outrage.
Just because the neurological response to anger keeps people scrolling.
Exactly. The psychologist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl provides a brilliant parallel in the text for this dynamic.
What did he say?
He wrote, "Man is pushed by drives, but pulled by values."
Oh, I like that.
Right. The biological urge for sugar or the psychological pull of social media outrage, those are drives pushing you around like a puppet. The Stoic mechanism is to sever those strings so you can be pulled forward by your own deeply reasoned values.
But actually doing that requires a radical shift in how we filter information.
Radical is the right word. Epictetus gives advice on this that almost feels culturally illegal today.
Illegal how?
He argues that if you wish to improve, you should be content to appear clueless or stupid about extraneous matters.
Just willingly look out of the loop.
Yeah, he is advocating for the absolute power of just saying, I don't know, or even I don't care, in the middle of a 247 information cycle.
Seneca describes the psychological mechanism behind this using the term euthymia, right?
Yes, euthymia.
Yeah.
And it isn't just a generic sense of, believing in yourself.
What is it exactly?
It's the process of establishing such a clear, calibrated internal compass that when you see the rest of society panicking over a news story or chasing a new cultural trend, your brain doesn't trigger a FOMO response.
You don't feel like you're missing out.
You have the tranquility of staying your course without wavering based on the crowd's frantic movements.
But the social pressure to engage with that crowd is immense.
Sure is.
I mean, think about it. If you go to a dinner party or a work function and you haven't read up on the latest political scandal or watched the hit TV show everyone is actively debating, you are judged.
Oh, immediately.
You're perceived as ignorant or disconnected. Is Epictetus actually telling us to absorb that social judgment and just tune it all out?
He is telling you it's a mandatory trade-off for cognitive sovereignty.
A mandatory trade-off?
Yeah. Think about the mental bandwidth required to track manufactured crises. The Stoics use the term oiesis to describe false conceptions, the way our minds create sprawling, anxiety-inducing narratives based on external noise.
Right, spinning out over something you read on Twitter.
Exactly. When you absorb the outrage of the day, it physically hijacks your amygdala. By enforcing a strict media diet and willingly appearing, quote, clueless about the noise, you prevent oiesis from taking root.
So you conserve your brain power for the few things inside your circle of control.
Precisely. Ignorance isn't the goal. Ruthless selectivity is the goal.
Okay, but severing the external strings, like deleting the apps, turning off the news, that really only solves half the problem.
True.
Because the media ecosystem feeds on something that already exists inside us. We still have to confront our internal noise.
The hardest part.
Right, our unchecked desires, our deeply ingrained habits, and the societal prizes we just inherently want to chase, like wealth and status.
The internal strings are often so much stronger than the external ones. The Stoic teacher, Musonius Rufus, warned intensely against rote behavior.
What do you mean by rote behavior?
Doing things simply because that's the way we've always done things. Mindless habit is basically the antithesis of reasoned choice.
And I'd argue the most common mindless habit in our society is the default assumption that more money and more luxury automatically equate to a better life.
Which is a very hard habit to break.
It is. The sources illustrate this with a really great literary anecdote about F. Scott Fitzgerald and Ernest Hemingway.
Oh, I love this story.
It's so revealing. Fitzgerald frequently glamorized the wealthy in his writing, and he once told Hemingway, "The rich are different from you and me."
And Hemingway's response?
Hemingway reportedly replied, "Yes, they have more money."
Brutal, but true.
Right. And Hemingway later observed that Fitzgerald's romantic illusion about wealth essentially destroyed him, which is fascinating because Seneca, who was paradoxically one of the wealthiest men in the Roman Empire, wrote extensively about this too.
Yeah, he knew from direct first-hand experience that wealth merely alters the scenery of your life. It doesn't actually resolve internal friction.
And we see this exact principle utilized by highly successful modern figures, right? People who actively hedge against hedonic adaptation.
Yeah, hedonic adaptation. That's the psychological process where your baseline expectations rise as your circumstances improve.
You never actually feel more satisfied. You just want more.
Yeah. Exactly, the treadmill.
Yeah.
But the text highlights Warren Buffett, a literal billionaire, who still lives in the house he bought in 1958 for $31,000.
That is wild.
Right. Or John Urschel, a professional football player making millions, but he lived on $25,000 a year. And NBA star Kawhi Leonard famously drove a 1997 Chevy Tahoe despite signing a contract worth $94 million.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
Because it's really easy to detach from the allure of luxury when you are Kawhi Leonard with a $94 million safety net, right?
Sure.
If a listener is working a standard 9-to-5 job, dealing with inflation and rising rent, telling them to emulate a billionaire's frugality borders on a luxury belief.
I see where you're going.
How does someone without millions in the bank apply this without feeling like they're just being forced to romanticize poverty?
That is a crucial distinction to make. The mechanism at play here isn't about fetishizing poverty.
Right.
It's about preventing material inflation from hijacking your freedom. The reason those men are highlighted in the book isn't because they're inherently cheap.
Right.
It's because they recognize that the things they valued most deeply, their craft, their intellectual pursuits, their peace of mind, happen to be inexpensive.
Ah, so it's about priority, not deprivation.
Exactly. By refusing to automatically upgrade their lifestyle the moment their income increased, they bought themselves ultimate leverage.
Leverage.
Yeah. If Kawhi Leonard's career ended suddenly, his psychological stability wouldn't collapse because his identity isn't load-bearing on a fleet of supercars.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. So the goal is refusing to let your baseline for happiness inflate. By not chaining your joy to the desire for a larger house or a designer wardrobe, you retain your freedom of choice regardless of your income bracket.
That's the Stoic superpower.
So, okay, the philosophical framework is clear. We separate what we control from what we don't. We sever the external media strings, and we refuse to inflate our internal desires.
Yep, that's the theory.
But philosophy fails if it just stays as theory. How does the listener practically wire this into their daily routine?
It requires daily, mechanical repetition. You have to build it in.
How did the Stoics do it?
Well, they utilize specific rituals, mantras, and perceptual fifths to physically rewire their responses. For example, Marcus Aurelius was taught by his tutor, Rusticus, to read deeply.
Like not just skimming for a summary.
Exactly. The sources compare this to a concept from the critic Edmund Wilson, who advised reading a book as if the author is on trial for their life.
Wow.
You don't just graze the surface, you interrogate the text until the underlying wisdom integrates into your own decision-making process.
And to ensure that integration actually happens, the Stoics relied heavily on the architecture of the morning and evening routine.
Bookending the day.
Right. Epictetus used a specific morning checklist. He would wake up and prime his brain by asking, what am I lacking in attaining freedom from passion? What is demanded of me?
Setting the intention.
And then Seneca closed the cognitive loop with an evening review. He would ask, what bad habit did I curb today? How am I better? It's a mechanism of constantly setting an intention and then auditing the execution.
And in between those morning and evening routines, they utilized mantras to interrupt destructive thought patterns in real time.
Just during the day when things get stressful.
Yeah. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to repeat a specific phrase when he felt overwhelmed.
Which was?
I have it in my soul to keep out any evil, desire, or any kind of disturbance.
I have it in my soul.
Right. And repeating a mantra like that isn't just, toxic positivity or empty positive thinking. It acts as a neurological circuit breaker.
A circuit breaker.
Yeah. It forces the brain to pause its default panic response and re-engage the prefrontal cortex. It brings the situation back within that circle of control.
And once the mind is stabilized, they focused on shifting how they physically perceived their environment.
This is one of my favorite practices.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Marcus was taught by another teacher, Fronto, to look at the world with the eye of a poet or an artist. The sources note how Marcus wrote about finding aesthetic charm in the frowning brow of a lion, or the unintended cracks that form in a loaf of baking bread.
Finding the beauty in the ordinary.
Exactly. He was actively training his brain to find harmony in the reality right in front of him, rather than constantly wishing his environment was different. And honestly, it aligns perfectly with the command echoed by modern NFL coach Bill Belichick.
Do your job.
Right. Do your job. Focus exclusively on the immediate task with dignity and simplicity.
Marcus Aurelius summarized this entire operational approach through a really powerful medical metaphor.
A medical metaphor?
Yeah. He wrote that we shouldn't view philosophy as a taskmaster. It shouldn't feel like a rigid boss standing over you with a whip.
Oh.
Instead, we should view it the way a patient views medicine, like an ointment applied to a burn, or a soothing treatment for sore eyes.
But see, the idea of viewing these routines as medicine forces us to reevaluate how we spend our time.
How so?
Because if someone listening is balancing a demanding career, family obligations, and just the general friction of daily life.
Yeah, everyone is busy.
Right. Adding a rigorous morning journaling session and an evening audit, it feels like layering another exhausting obligation onto an already overflowing to-do list.
I hear that. But that is precisely why the medicine metaphor matters so much. Because when you have a severe burn, taking 5 minutes to apply an ointment isn't an extra chore. It is an efficiency tool.
Oh, that's a good shift in perspective.
It neutralizes the pain so you can actually function for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Sitting down for 5 minutes in the morning to explicitly define what is in your control and 5 minutes at night to audit your choices.
It prevents you from burning out later.
Exactly. It prevents you from spending the next 10 hours burning cognitive energy on things you can't even change. It prevents the anxiety over a coworker's opinion or the anger at a traffic jam. The philosophy is the salve that cures the friction of existence.
You apply the ointment to prevent the systemic infection. Well, we've traced this framework from the battlefields of ancient Rome to the modern digital landscape. And true clarity emerges only when we ruthlessly separate our reasoned choices from external outcomes.
That's the core of it all.
It requires cutting the puppet strings of algorithmic distraction, rejecting the hedonic treadmill of consumerism, and applying daily methodical reflection.
Because the architecture of your life is built entirely from the quality of your reasoned choices.
The choices are the building blocks.
Right. Everything else, the weather, the economy, the opinions of others, that is merely the environment you are navigating.
That brings us to a final thought for you to carry into your day. And it builds directly on Epictetus's concept that all external events, no matter how disruptive they are simply the raw material for our minds to process.
For raw material, I love that.
Right. So think about the very next frustrating thing that inevitably happens to you today. A delayed train, a sudden financial setback, maybe an entirely unreasonable email from a client.
It is going to happen.
It's guaranteed. But instead of interpreting it as a roadblock or a personal tragedy, what if you viewed it as the exact raw material you required to practice your craft?
A shift in perception.
Exactly. How much of your psychological sovereignty would you immediately reclaim if you treated today's highest stress point not as a crisis, but as a mandatory, custom-designed training exercise for your own tranquility?